Welcome to the IRS Whisperer Podcast. This podcast is designed for tax professionals with a spin toward IRS representation. My name is Dan Hem, and I'm a CPA CTR. New episodes will drop weekly on Thursdays. Each week we'll be giving you exciting material to help the tax pro in their tax practice. That's assuming you can say exciting and taxes in the same sentence. On the IRS Whisperer Podcast, each episode will cover 3 different areas of a tax practice. We will present the marketing moment, which will cover various topics in marketing or sales to help you generate more clients and revenue in your business. The world of practice management will give you suggestions on how to better run your tax practice. And we will also cover our technical time that will cover some of the latest changes or tips, tricks to help you in handling your IRS representation cases. So I'm so glad you are here and hope you enjoy the show. Now, on to today's episode. Welcome to the show. This is the start of season 3 of the IRS Whisperer podcast. And I want to cover a few things today that I think will help tax practitioners, more specifically since we are the Tax Resolution Academy and are connected to the Tax Resolution Academy, and that we are in the area of IRS representation. So those people who, basically it covers those people who owe the IRS money, they get audited, they get a notice, or any combination thereof. So practitioners who want to earn and profit more over the people who are in those particular situations, sometimes they've brought it about themselves, sometimes it's brought upon them, but you are the defender, the protector, the person who is going to come to their rescue and help retrieve them from being the hostage of the IRS is probably the best way to say it. I like to say that we are protectors and defenders of those that need the help. So 3 things that I want to cover today to help you in your tax practice. So the first thing I want to cover today is time blocking. Time blocking is a concept that if you get it and understand it, it will help you with your practice. So if you ever had those days, and I'm sure you've all had this if you're listening to this, that you've had that day where you've been there 8, 10, 12 hours, and you're on your way home from the office, or if your office is in your home, you're walking across the house, and you kind of think about, what did I do today? And I've had many of those days where you just felt like I was there, I know I did stuff, and I just don't know what I did. And you try and think about it, and you think of 3 or 4 things that you did. And when you think about the time involved in each of those, that might cover 2, 3, 4 hours. And you're just like, what happened with the rest of the time? And so what ends up happening is we get bogged down in trying to be all things to everybody when they want it. Okay, we are in this type of society today where it's instant gratification. So you need to protect yourself. You need to protect your time. And by doing so, you need to basically take out some of the distractions, take out some of the instant things, because we deal with tax stuff. We're not doctors. People don't need things like lickety split where they need it right away. There are no financial emergencies, and if it becomes a financial emergency to them, that doesn't make it our emergency. We don't have to necessarily drop everything for our clients. That's their problem, that they waited to the last second, that they're telling us now about a levy that happened 2 or 3 weeks ago, that they got a demand from the revenue officer that they need to submit tax returns or other documentation, and they were given a month and now it's less than a week. They needed to get a tax return done and they're coming in 2 weeks before the deadline. Okay, that's not your problem. You shouldn't jump through all the hoops, not unless they're willing to pay you for that. Okay, I've talked about this before. You should charge rush fees for those types of situations. But if you can manage to control your time, and so time blocking is the concept where you basically set aside a time where you're going to work on some bigger project. that project could be preparing a tax return. It could be reviewing a big tax return or a number of tax returns. It could be preparing for a planning session for a client. It could be reviewing a case, whether it's a collections or an exam case. You're reviewing all the materials. It could be any number of things. It could be marketing related tasks. It's, you're planning your presentation that you're about to give at a seminar, a webinar. You're in a networking group and you're giving the next 10-minute presentation. You're doing your weekly 1-minute, 2-minute presentation. You need some time to put all of those things together. You're coming up with a campaign for your social media, your video. I just met with my marketing VA today, and we were talking about how I can record some videos. They can edit it for a podcast. We can post it on YouTube. We can take the transcript and we can make it a blog post. We can take the video and edit it, and using different software that will chop up and create YouTube shorts. We can use it to create social media posts. So try to think about how we can leverage some of that in multi-purposing, and I'll talk more about that in a different episode. But time blocking is where we're setting aside that 1, 2, 3 hour time where you just turn off all distractions. At the end of the day, you should close your browsers, take your cell phone and either put it on a silent, turn it away from you so like this, so you can't see what's on the screen. Turn off your notifications. There are even apps you can put it that basically make it a brick, which basically means you can't do anything but make emergency phone calls, I believe, from it, the way the apps work. And so you set those things up so that you can have that focus time. If you have an office phone, a desk phone, put it on do not disturb. If you have people in your office, tell them that you are in your do not disturb time. So unless the building is burning down or some other, there's a tsunami coming, whatever's, is about to happen, that is an immediate need, that unless those things happen, that they shouldn't be coming and talking to you about anything. Okay. So a phone call comes in from a client, you are unavailable. Somebody walks in, you are unavailable. Okay. That's, you need to work on an appointment basis. Okay. I had my staff tell callers that, I return my phone calls at certain times of the day. So usually it was between 12 and 1 and then 4 to 6. Usually that's when I would respond to emails, to phone calls. That's what it would say. I even had that description in the signature area of my email, so that people knew not to expect an immediate response. And then my staff person would say, okay, so here's when he normally does it. If you want a faster response, generally email was the better way to get me. So I'm now trying to train my clients to respond to me via email. Now, if you're having a phone system that allows for texting, don't give your personal cell phone number. Again, another topic for another day, but don't give your personal cell phone number. They shouldn't be texting you or any of your staff. They shouldn't have anybody's personal cell phone. They should be able to text your office phone, that the text come in there, and then you or somebody can respond to text. And again, it's not an immediate type of thing that needs to be done. Focus on what you're doing. Work on those big tasks. For most people, that should be the time first thing in the morning, because that's usually when we're the most energized, the most focused. And if we can do those, say between the hours of 8 and 12, anywhere, pick an hour, pick, 2 hours, pick the whole 4-hour time block. If that's when you can do it, get the stuff done, have your lunch, get up, go walk around, and then you come back and then you triage through whatever needs to be done in terms of email and phone call returns, text messaging, whatever the communication method is. Because if you do that and you bunch things up like this, then you don't get bogged down. So like, you don't even start with your day with email. You just focus on whatever it is that you need to do. At the end of the day, you write down, grab a notebook and write it down of what's the next biggest 3 things that you need to work on the next day. And that's all you see when you first come in at your desk, and you work on those three things. Okay. And then you deal with email, you deal with everything else. Because what you'll find is that if you apply that in your practice, you will get things done, and you'll get things done every day. So you're writing a book, you're writing a blog, you're working on a huge tax return or a big case. When you have that block of time where you can sit and focus, and try not to do what I do with the shiny object syndrome. So if you have everything closed, if some thought props in your mind, go write it down so you can go back to it later. Don't go and have 10 things open at any one point in time. Just focus on what you're doing at that particular moment. And I promise you that, nobody's going to yell and scream at you. And if they do, they probably shouldn't be your client. And, have ways that you can communicate with your spouse, with your family, whatever, that if there is truly an emergency, let them know, if it's truly an emergency to let you know, and find out that those ways, but don't, just ignore everything else. Focus on what you're doing, and you will get so much more done in your practice. And like I said, I can guarantee you that nobody's going to freak out on you. They may initially, but just say, hey, I'm doing this to protect my time. It's for their benefit, because you do that when you're working on their particular work as well. So focus on that, work on your time blocks. Okay. And then if you have any questions or any comments in regard to that, feel free to, wherever you're listening to or watching this, put something in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you handle things, how that works for you. And if you've never done it and you're now trying it, let me know how that works. Or you're more than welcome to email me. You should find ways to contact me in the show notes, or the way you're listening to this later. Now, from a marketing perspective, one thing that I want to talk to practitioners, again, especially for those of you that are handling representation cases, one little trick that we use in terms of finding some of the low-hanging fruit, the easy ways for you to generate some revenue, is, especially when you've just started out doing the representation type of work, the first thing that you should do, and if you have staff people, this is something a staff person should be doing. So you go through and look at your client list. Go through all the people who owed money, and then you look through that particular list of the people who owed, and then find out the ones that, if you know for certain that they have money, that they paid the balance, either it was a small balance and that they make a good money, or they make good money and it's a high balance, and for certain that they paid it, then you don't reach out to necessarily them, although I can come back to that in a second. But for those where you're uncertain, give them a call and say, hey, just wanted to touch base. You went and learned something new. You're adding a new service, you're whatever, and you wanted to confirm and make sure that they paid their balance due by the due date, paid it in full. Because if they didn't, then you can then offer that, hey, now have this service where you can get them into a payment plan. And then if you have the questions and you find out that they can't get into a payment plan, they don't have the cash flow, something happened where they lost their job, any number of things that could have happened recently, that you can offer your services to help them obviously possibly get into some other resolution option. That's the way you can find how to get some of the low-hanging fruit. So people that are already in your orbit, they like you, it's many times, especially if you're offering these services. Unfortunately, I've had too many times where people like, oh, I didn't know you offered that service. Well, yes, I do. So, the second thing is, make sure that your clients know that you do those services. Email them, send them a letter, call them, text them, make sure that they know that you provide the representation services. If you handle exams, you handle notice replies, let them know that. So if they get that, this way, one, if it's, and the way you frame it is to them that you're adding the services, that, hey, we're adding this service if you know of anybody, and if obviously they fit it, then hopefully they'll reach out to you. But since they're already your client, they know, like, and trust you, then it should be the easy sell for you. We taught this our boot camp in Atlanta a number of years ago, and we had one person who later became a member of the Tax Resolution Academy, and she told us that we told her about this, and she went back to her practice. She actually did this, and she actually ended up finding one client who hadn't paid it, hadn't get set up a payment plan, and she ended up charging them $500 to basically set up a basic installment agreement. And she did that, earned $500 for her time. So not only, she got basically paid back for coming to the boot camp that she learned that at. And so that's one of the things, the low hanging fruit that you can go out and reach out. Make sure your clients know that. You should be, every time you review a tax return with somebody and they owe money, if you have any question in your mind whether or not they have the ability to pay, and even then you probably should still ask the question and said, hey, are you going to be able to pay this by the April 15th due date? Okay. And then give them the opportunity, oh yeah, I'll do this. And, and I always try to get people to pay online now and try not to wait till the last minute, or at least go and do it and schedule it out and then just make sure to verify it so that they don't, nothing happens, nothing, because, things happen, people get into accidents, family members get sick, and it's not like it just happens at the best times of the year. Unfortunately, many of us have had that even in tax season where things happen. And, it's not the best time. So we tend to forget about everything else. And now they get whacked with penalties and interest. That's why I get people, hey, the return is done in March. You want to pay? Let's go and get it filed. So I don't want it to be late. I don't want that to be my responsibility. File it. You can pay whenever you want to, but I always try to push them and recommend to get that done sooner than later. Okay, so hopefully that'll be something that'll help you and you can generate a little bit more revenue. But again, from here on out, you make sure that everybody that owes money, you have that conversation with them. And not only that, but ask them for referrals. Do they know of anybody else who has that type of a situation, or plant the seed, at least that they can be on the lookout to listen for, to watch for those types of situations with family and friends. Now, the last topic I want to talk to is on a technical topic, talking about the CSED. So that's the collection statute expiration date. Most of you all know it's the 10-year period in which the IRS has to collect from the taxpayer. And we all know that there are what's called tolling events. I like to call them clock stoppers. So it's a 10-year clock. These tolling events are events that stop that clock. Okay, so things like the offer in compromise, a collection due process appeal, filing to get into an installment agreement. Once you get into that pending status, that usually will stop the clock for 30 days. And there are a number of other different things that cause that clock stopping, such as a bankruptcy, such as what else was the being outside of the country for 6 months or more. And there's still a handful of others that stop the clock. So that clock could actually be, 10 and a half, 11. I've seen as many as 15 plus years in terms of that. So the question is, what happens when that period is about to expire? So one resolution option that you can have a discussion with your clients is that wait out that last bit of period of time, that once it gets past the end of the CSED period, and we're a day past that, then the IRS loses the ability to collect that any further. Now, you have to be mindful of it. Keep in mind that there can be multiple CSED periods in one particular year. So they file a return and owe money, and then they get CP 2000 notice, they get audited, and then, there's an additional liability that happens a year or two later. That second liability that increases the balance has a new CSED period. So you can have multiple ones, and technically penalties and interest also have their own CSED periods. Because keep in mind, accrued penalties and interest still populate into the account transcripts, usually every year, but not necessarily always the case. So when you look at those types of things, look at the CSED period. If it's under 2 years, then offer that as a option to the client. Let them decide what they want to do. Do you want to get into a resolution option? Here are the options that are available for you. Here are the pros and cons of each one. And this last one is waiting out the rest of the CSED period to let it expire. Now, Let them decide, then you document it. So if you're having a phone conversation, you're having a face-to-face meeting with them, whether it's across the desk or you're doing a Zoom, Google Meeting, Teams kind of conversation, reduce it to writing. Make sure that you document it and say, hey, here's what our basic gist of our conversation. Here are the options. Here's what you chose to do. And then send it to them via email, via regular mail, certified mail, so that you can document that. So you don't want it to make it sound like you are the one who chose that option. Do not do that. Let them choose what they want to do. Same thing when it comes to preparing the back tax returns. We're allowed generally with the last 6 years based on IRS policy statement P5 133 that says generally the last 6 years. Now, if they haven't filed in 10, your responsibility is tell them, hey, you really should be doing the 10. Let them decide whether they want to do the 6 years or the 10 years. And I've seen people on both ends that say, hey, I only want to do the least amount I have to, or hey, I want to be able to sleep better at night and I want to do everything that we can do to catch, up the whole gap. Okay, so they don't want anything to come back and bite them at any one point in time. And I keep saying that here, the IRS of the next 5 to 10 years is going to be different because they're employing new technologies that the things that fall through the cracks today may not fall through the cracks in 5 to 10 years. So you do not want to be responsible for that. Document it, do what the legal term is, reduce it to writing, and let them decide. And then if they decide to wait it out, because the drawbacks is they could levy their wages, they could levy their bank account, they could reduce it to judgment and sue them in court. And if the government does that, then typically what happens is it resets the CSED period to 20 years. So we've got a brand new clock that starts the day of that, at the end of the judge, or starting with the day of the judgment for the next 20 years. And not only that, but things like the offer and compromise come off the table. Now, it happens. I see it all the time. I mentioned this into my members here recently, and I had one where the client said $18,000 fell off. I had another one said they had $80,000 fall off. I had a guy who just came to me. He was referred by another practitioner close to me here in Florida, and he was like this shy, a smidge shy of $500,000, that when I'm literally talking to him, it's the day after 50,000 fell off of that $500,000 I think it was about 9 days after I was talking to him. The bulk, that was like $400,000, was going to fall off. And then about 30 days after that was the remaining $50,000. So he literally got by without paying $500,000 in taxes, penalties, and interest to the federal government. And he actually owed another $30,000 to the state of New Hampshire. And so it happens. There are people, I've had it many, many times where the debt just falls off. And it just becomes uncollectible. The IRS does not have the manpower to chase all these people down. I had a conversation with the revenue officer here in my local office out of Melbourne, Florida, a few months ago, and because of the changes of the downsizing of government, including the IRS, he said at the end of the day there was originally 9 revenue officers at the beginning of 24. He said they were down to 3, and he thought that one more was probably going to go and leave at that point in time. So right now they're just shifting over cases from a lot of those other people that have left to the existing people, and they're just handling the cases that are in play right now. So keep that in mind. Look at the CSED period expiration. And generally the period to look at that is if it's under 2 years left. But make sure you verify, do the math, actually do the calculations, whether or not you use resolution software. Make sure that you verify that the dates and times are correct, and make sure that you do what you can to make sure that CSED period is actually what it's supposed to be. And with that, please let me know if you have any comments or questions. Feel free to post that in the comments below, and I'd be happy to help you and do whatever I can. Feel free to reach out to me via any of the social media or any emails that you can. You should hopefully have that information in the show notes, and I'll help you whatever I can do into your cases. you're more than welcome to come and join us inside the Tax Resolution Academy, where there's other members that can help you understand and map out the various different ways that, how do you sell things, how do you market things, so how do you handle certain aspects and technical things. And we love to help you. My mission is to help make your life better, to help you understand how to manage your time so that you can have more time to do the things that you want to do more. As I get older, as my daughter, my middle daughter, has given us 2 grandchildren now that I love to coach, I love to referee youth soccer, I love to do things with my church, I love to do things with my family. And we're about to take a trip to Atlanta, and I love to do hiking and doing a lot of things outdoors and have fun with my family. And that's what becomes really important, and my job is to help you achieve that, to earn more, to reduce stress, to make the rest of your, to give that joy, the reason that we all started doing what we do. That's my mission, is to help you, find the love, to not be overworked, to not be stressed, to not be feeling like you're taking advantage of. And hopefully this helps you. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help you guys. So with that, you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to our show. We hope you received some valuable information to help you in your tax practice. The IRS Whisperer is sponsored by the Tax Resolution Academy. If you have any questions you'd like to see addressed on the show, or comments to help us make it better, please reach out to us on social media. Follow us or download our shows on your favorite podcast app. Tune in to our next episode, where we'll give you some more exciting information to help you grow your practice.